Welcome, our fellow lovers of love, and thank you for joining us on yet another excursion through the stream of consciousness, down the river of tranquility, to fill the lake of life with love.
And good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining me and Lubby here. We are on yet another excursion. And tonight, we're going to talk about being a people pleaser. Is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? But what actually is it? Because I don't know how many of us actually know what exactly a people pleaser is. Because there's actually a difference between what we psychologically call a people pleaser and someone like who's a helper. They're just a natural helper and they like to help, and so they say yes all the time. It's maybe a fine line, and I'm not entirely sure it's necessarily easy to see. And maybe sometimes you're a natural helper, but maybe you have, I don't know, lack of confidence, lack of self-confidence, and that can actually slip into being a people pleaser. And so it's not necessarily a straight line thing, and it's hard to for all of us, really, to understand, exactly what it is and what to do about it, if you even should do about it, because, the desire to please people isn't necessarily a bad thing. It's if your desire to please people comes at your own expense.
Yes.
Yes, if it takes away from your life instead of adds to it, that's where it becomes an issue. And these things are difficult to talk about. So that's what we're going to talk about tonight. We're going to talk about people pleasing and whether it's a good or a bad thing. But, before we start with that, it's been a difficult week for, many people. The country is going through yet another tragedy, and we're not going to discuss politics or details or anything in that here. But, there is, when we all ask ourselves a question, what can we do? What can we do? Well, there is one thing everybody can do. If everybody just does one thing to become a little better human being, just to do one thing to make the world around you a better, kinder, nicer, gentler place. If 150 million people do that, then the world has no choice but to become a better, kinder, gentler place. And so, you don't need to change the world, but you can start with you. You can make yourself a better person, which makes the people around you a better people, which makes the people around them a better people. And next thing you know, over the course of some time, we can start to heal. What doesn't solve our problems is yelling at each other and being divisive and throwing up the same old arguments that we always have. We know where that ends. And so the task is, what do we do different? And it's, you look in the mirror and you say, what can I do different? And that's, I think our best path forward as a society.
Take back your power.
Yeah. Because it is all about you. And we want to know, if you like what we do here and you want to see more, please do us a favor and like, subscribe, share, do all the good stuff that everybody likes you to do. It really does help everybody. And, comment, say hello, all that good stuff.
Please.
You can send Lubby a dear love letter at love@latenightLove.us.
We're just going with love letters.
I'm just going with love letters because that's what they're going to get called anyway. So, and you can always visit for show notes and contact us at latenightLove.us or their various social media platforms. And you can always catch us on your podcast platforms if you want to catch us on the go. Okay. So, people pleasing. And today, Lubby is happy because she has lists.
Lists are your friend.
So, this first one is, what was it? The title? I can't actually quite read. I don't have this quite set up for me.
7 ways your life gets worse when you try to please other people.
All right. So let's go.
Number 1, people will walk all over you.
Yeah. Okay. Maybe. If you let them, yes. If you're an overly people-pleasing, they will walk all over you. Some will. Not all. And some will do it not even... See, I don't like that because some of them don't walk all over you intentionally.
No, but it says when you're a people pleaser, you have a difficult time setting boundaries.
Yeah, my friend will help me because he always helps me. And so they come and ask you for help. And you don't know how to say, no, I can't do that today. You end up, he doesn't know because you don't tell him. That's part of the thing. So it's an incomplete relationship at that point. It's not actually a relationship. It's a one-way relationship accidentally. And then you have those people who will just take advantage of anybody they can, and that leaves you open for that. Okay, so what do you got for next?
Number 2, you'll turn people off who would have otherwise liked you.
Because it can come off as
desperate
or needy, or like you're expecting something in return. And people don't like that expectation of something in return. They're happy to give you stuff in return, but it's the expectations, that turn people off. You can feel like you're expecting more of them than they, might want to give. And these are people who know how to have boundaries. And so they're just afraid that at some point it's going to come back to bite them. So, because it feels inauthentic to them is what happens. It's authentic to you, but to somebody else it can feel inauthentic. And so you're not trustworthy at that stage. Or you don't feel trustworthy at that stage. Okay.
You'll attract the wrong people into your life.
Yeah, that actually kind of makes sense, right? The people who will hang around you long term will be the people who will use you. So that's kind of sad, but it is what it is. Okay.
People pleasing will make you feel like a fraud.
Well, yes, because you're never who. Well, yes, you're never who you are.
Not never, but you take on. You don't have your own boundaries. You don't have your own values, your own wants, needs, and desires.
Yes, you seem flexible. Your ethics, your wants and desires seem flexible, so no one really knows what you ever want. Yeah, if your favorite food changes every time you go out to eat because that's what people around you like that particular time, then how is anybody supposed to know what your favorite food really is? If you love everything, then you can't really love everything. Yeah.
How can they get to know you?
Just as a quick example, where's your quirks? Yeah. So,
yeah,
the quirks are in the beauty. The beauty's in your flaws. It's not in your perfections.
It's what makes you unique.
Yeah, if we were all the same, we'd be boring. Oh.
You'll go frustrated with the world and other people.
Makes sense. Well, no, it makes sense. If you're never actually searching for what you want because you're always busy trying to please other people, you never become the person who you want to be.
Well, you give so much but get so little in return.
Well, it's not even what you're getting in return. It may not be what you need because you're not asking for the right things, in a sense. So, because how can you ask for the right things if you can't be completely honest with the people, with your friends and those people who care about you? So, okay.
Other people will grow frustrated with you.
Yeah, we've kind of covered this one because, if they can't understand what your favorite things are, what your favorite movies are, what your favorite, how are they supposed to, plan a surprise birthday party or something?
Well, they're talking about the neediness.
Yeah, but see, that's the part I don't get, even though because most people pleasers aren't actually all that needy. Their need is to please people. It's people think you're needy. They think you're manipulating them when you're really not, but they think you are because you kind of are. You don't really intend to, but so you're not, but it feels like it. If you all could follow that.
I follow that.
So, but, who wants to think that hard? in your relationships. You should just want to be able to trust that the person's being authentic with you, and being overly pleasing, you're not being authentic. You're not even being authentic with yourself. So how can you be authentic with other people? So yeah.
Okay, 7, being a people pleaser it prevents you from living an authentic life.
Yeah, well, they could have actually just put the list of 1, and that have been the list, because that's really the truth. If you're a people pleaser, you're not being your authentic self. You're not living life for yourself. You think you are, but you're really not, because you never really get to find out who you really are. If you're always, what's the word they use, code switching these days, to fit in with the group around you, and we all do that to some extent, but if you constantly live like that, if your life is continual and you're just like a sock puppet blowing in the wind, whatever your group wants you to do, you go around and do. Well, at best, you're a follower. You're clearly not a leader. Man, so, it's no surprise if you get left behind. And that's not good for you. People like authenticity. Authenticness.
Authenticity.
Thank you. My tongue doesn't want to work. Authenticity. See, I can say it. It just couldn't say it then. And it's, authentic. Being authentic is a very attractive thing. And if people think you're, constantly changing because you want to please people, or, how do they know it's because you want to please people? Maybe they think you're just manipulative. If you have to think of it from the other person's perspective. Because it's not just the interactions with them that they see your interactions with other people as well. And so they see you doing this, and at some point that can't all be true, despite the fact that it kind of is. It is really who and how you are, but it comes off to other people as inauthentic, and it opens yourself up to manipulation and abuse by predators of the world. And so that's the real dangers, is it pushes the people who can be closest to you away, can push people you want in your life away and bring people into your life that you don't. And that's the real danger of these kind of things. All right.
10 signs you may be a people pleaser and what to do about it.
Okay, now, so this is actually the question. We're going to move from, why is being people pleaser a bad thing? And so how do you know? How is it, do you know if you're a helper or a people pleaser? Right? You just like to help people, but, you know how to say no, you know how to draw boundaries, you know how to tell people, all that. So this is an interesting way to go. Let's go.
You act like the people around you. It's one thing to listen to and respect the opinions of another. It is another thing entirely to adopt them as your own.
Well, that's kind of what we all do as teens and young people, don't we? We adopt the culture around us, and then at some point we realize that we have to be our own human beings, and we become ourselves. We become and develop our unique selves. And that's what we do now, essentially in high school and college, is where you go off and find your unique selves. That 10-year period is where you actually find yourself and get to experiment with all kinds of weird thoughts and ideas and people. And then in your mid-20s, you start to kind of settle down and become who you are. And so you have to be careful about which stage of life you're in. But, always be careful. Why are you saying yes? It's probably a good question to ask yourself. You find yourself asking yes too many times. So, okay.
You are constantly apologizing.
Well, I know someone like this. Constantly apologizes even when there's no need to apologize. You ask them to call you and they call you, hey, I'm sorry for bothering you. I do that to an extent. So not one of these things, necessarily one of these things, one sign isn't actually a sign of people pleaser. And I may have been in the past overly people pleasing when really I was a helper and didn't know how to say no. It's hard to know. Complex when you mix these things in with anxiety disorder. What's what?
I've gone through periods where I've been people pleasing.
Well, and sometimes you just have to go along to get along, and it is what it is, right? You need the paycheck, so you go along to get along until you can find something better. Is that people pleasing, or is that just surviving? Yeah, so there are lines that we have to be careful about wanting to cross. But okay, but yeah, overly apologizing. So if you run up a handful of these things is really what you want to look for, not one or two. If you've got a handful of these things, you may want to think about it. Okay, what's we got?
You rarely, if ever, say no.
Okay.
Okay, now the issue with this is you doing things you don't want to do or going unnecessarily out of your way for others.
Yeah. Well, we all do things we don't necessarily want to do from time to time. Are you constantly doing it? You know? And why? Again, it's the question why. Why are you doing it? Are you doing it because you genuinely want to help a good friend, or are you doing it because you want to be liked? Those are actually different answers. Yeah. Okay.
You avoid confrontation. I don't like confrontation.
Yeah. It's like I said, no one of these things is a sign by itself. So if you line these up with a handful of others. Okay.
You are devastated if someone doesn't like you. I don't give a blue snot in Hades.
But that is true. You know, there's a scene in one of my old TV shows I used to watch, and this guy is talking with his therapist, and talking about some guy he wants to get people to like him, even though he's perfectly likable. He still has this desire to need to get people to like him, and the therapist asked him once, okay, well, what about the people who don't? He says, well, I want to get them to like me too. Says, don't you have people that like you? Sure, most people like me. So what about the people who don't? They don't. I don't give them much thought. And that's really the healthy. People don't like me. People don't like me.
Not everyone is going to like you. That was a hard lesson for me to learn way back when as a teenager, but
well, I mean, the thing
not everybody is going to like you.
Do you like everybody?
No.
So why would you expect everybody to like you? It works. That's the same way. Most people like me, and so the fact that some don't is not my problem. I don't overly worry about it. That's probably a healthy attitude to have. And even if not, hey, if some people like you and most don't, no, so what? Some people like you. Maybe you have an attitude problem that you might want to think about dealing with, but at least some people like you. It's a start. You're not an awful human being. At least there's people who like you. Might be a sign. If a whole host of people don't like you, it might be a sign that you have an abrasive personality or something of that nature. But, hey, as long as the people you love like you, it doesn't really matter what the rest of the world thinks, does it?
Not really.
It's those important ones. Those important relationships are the ones that really matter. Because what do I care if somebody in, Iowa or Ohio or Idaho doesn't like me? What do I care if someone down the street doesn't like me? It doesn't affect me any. My day doesn't change. It doesn't change because I don't think about it. Okay, what do we got?
You take on other people's feelings. Well, some people are just very empathetic.
Yeah, I mean, so like we want to discuss, you make sure you don't have, just because you hit one or two of these things doesn't mean anything. You got to hit a list of these things. Okay.
You struggle to make decisions.
Well, I don't know who doesn't struggle to make decisions. So, I don't know, like, again, he has to line this up. I mean, if you've got two competing things and you don't know what to do because you want to help two big people and you can't decide because you don't know what you want, You don't know what's best for you. You don't know which thing. You got two people and you don't know who you want to please more, rather than just think about which thing you'd like to do or which friend you'd like to help out more, whatever the case may be. It's probably a problem. Okay.
You are nice to everyone, even if they treat you badly. Well, I'm not mean to anybody. If someone's bad to me, I just go away from them.
Yeah. Well, I try to be nice to everybody, but there comes a point where, you stop the trying to be nice to people.
Yeah, when you're constantly, all your efforts are rebuffed, it's like, okay, well, you don't want to be my friend, okay.
Well, it's not about being your friend. It's just if you're not even going to be civil. There's a point between, being civil. I just think a lot of it is being nice to people is simply being civil for me. And maybe that's my grandma speaking, but, civility is a thing. And, being nice to people by default is the best way to be civil. Now, it doesn't mean you have to be nice to people who aren't nice to you, but someone might be having a bad day. Their marriage could be falling apart. Their kid could be in the hospital. You never know. And so, their reaction may not be as negative towards you as you think it is. I always try to. How many days in my life have I not been my best self? Quite a few. So I try to give that same thought process to other people. Just saying. I try not to take it out on the world, but doesn't mean I'm always successful. Okay.
You don't ask for help. While people pleasers will often be the first to put their hands up to help others, they will rarely, if ever, ask for help when it comes to themselves.
Yeah, having trouble asking for help because you're afraid of, you're afraid of rejection, but, you're afraid of someone saying no.
Fear of being a burden or putting others out of their way.
Yeah. So there is that. Okay.
Last one, people tend to ask you for favors regularly.
Yeah. And again, this becomes a difference between, if you're a helper and you help in the community and you're known, and so people come to ask you and talk to you all the time, that's one thing. But if you have a handful, 2 or 3 people who continually come to you and ask you to help with things that are unrelated to your relationship, shall we say, just completely, it's probably a problem. But again, one of these things isn't necessarily a problem. 2 of these things isn't necessarily a problem. If you've got 5 or 6 of these things lined up, then, a discussion with your therapist or counselor might be in order. And if you don't have one, it might be time to consider one. Not because you're not connecting with your true self. And that's the real danger. Screw other people. The real thing is you. The real thing is that you're not being your true self. You can't be your best self if you're always trying to make other people like you. You just can't be. It's literally not possible. But we don't want to end on negativity. So we're going to discuss that there's there is some stuff about what to do about it, wasn't there?
Yeah.
Okay, let's hit these real quick. I'm sorry, I jumped ahead.
What can you do about it? Reflect. Be useful to explore underlying reasons why you're exhibiting these types of behaviors.
Yeah, ask yourself why. Okay.
Identify your values.
Mm-hmm. Find out what you want, who you are, what you want to be.
Be mindful during social interactions.
Okay. What does that mean?
Pay attention to any people-pleasing behaviors you might be exhibiting.
Okay.
Start
kind of ill-defined, but
start small and build up.
Yeah, it's not. It's it's like everything. It's not you don't have to get. You're not don't have to be the finished product tomorrow. Who you're going to be is years off. It's okay to take time. Life is not a race. Okay.
And the last one, talk to a therapist. It might be useful to speak to a therapist who can assist you to identify underlying reasons why you might be behaving this way and work through strategies that might be helpful.
Yeah, we've always fans of going to counseling or therapists or your clergy or whoever it is, your spiritual advisor, whatever it is, your life coach. I don't care who it is, someone to bounce these things off of. It's a good idea. And the more severe your problem is, the more professional your help needs to be. So, you can choose. I have faith that you can choose the level of help you need for yourself.
Okay, 10 reasons why being a people pleaser is not always a bad thing.
Well, nothing is always a bad or thing, right? We all live in a world of gray. Most of the world is gray, and so what you do with it is what counts. Okay.
Number 1, because they are great at resolving conflict.
Yeah. Well, over time, what you do is you learn how different personalities and people react to different situations, so you can actually navigate a conflict better than most people because you do it naturally. You've been practicing it your essentially entire life, how to smooth over ruffled feathers, and so it's become good.
Yeah.
Especially once you get past it, and you can, if you can use those skills as skills, active skills rather than passive skills. If you're no longer a people pleaser, but you still have those skills you learned being a people pleaser, you can be a very powerful leader. Ability to understand and empathize, that's a strong leadership trait and skill. Okay, sorry.
Because they are great at making social connections, people pleasers are often very likable and very good at making small talk.
Well, they're good in those first 10, 15 minutes. Yes. They're good at breaking the ice, so to speak. Well, unless you've got an anxiety disorder or something mixed with it, which is just never a good thing. But yes, the people like them off the top because you know how to get along with people in those first 15, 20 minutes. You've learned. It's a skill you've learned. So even if you don't necessarily like doing it. All right.
Because they tend to do well in their careers. People pleasers tend to do well because they will go the extra mile to make friends and forge long-lasting social and work-based relationships with colleagues.
Well, that's a strange way to say they can be a yes person, and yes people get promoted. If you hitch yourself onto a powerful person and you're his right hand yes man, yes person, you can go far as long as he's competent. Or they are competent. Okay.
Because they have attractive personalities, their ability to find common ground with almost anyone gives them a highly approachable, friendly, and confident demeanor.
Okay. I think I'm going to wrap this up with a caveat to all this, but yes, go ahead. I'm developing a caveat on this one. So
Because number 5, because they're great listeners.
This is true. They're good at listening. They genuinely care about what other people think. They remember things well. I get you. Mm-hmm.
They're adaptable.
Yeah, this is true. They have been practicing the skill of adaptation. Yeah, they know how to operate in wide variety of circumstances. Yeah. Even if they don't necessarily like it, they learn how to do things they don't necessarily like to do, and without it being a drag on them emotionally. So yeah, okay.
Okay, number 7, because they are knowledgeable, people pleasers often have a surprising amount of knowledge they have picked up through interacting with so many people.
Yeah, well, if you're always helping everybody with all kinds of eclectic projects, you learn a lot of things. That's you learn by doing, right? And if you're always doing things, you can learn a lot, and there's a lot of people to teach you. And so, again, saying yes to people, to things, as long as it doesn't harm you, it's not a bad thing. Okay.
Number 8, because they can keep their head in emergencies.
Okay.
When a tense, dangerous, or emergency situation unfolds, people pleasers are usually very helpful and pragmatic.
Yeah. Well, because they're used to balancing, right? They're used to having to balance all kinds of things in their head. They're used to running, having to net balance all kinds of crazy things, make kind of decisions on the fly. And so an emergency doesn't, it's nothing new to them. All kinds of decisions with incomplete information that has to be made. They're essentially used to it. So it's not as shocking to them as would be to others. Okay. Makes sense. Now, I don't know if that I just said is true. I could have just pulled it out my butt, but it sounds good. Okay.
9. Because they're fun to be around, people pleasers often know a lot of people and tend to have active social lives. They always have something going on and are rarely inert.
No, okay. Maybe. Okay.
They also tend to be funny and will want to make you laugh.
Well, that's actually probably true, because what's one of the best way to please people? Is to make them laugh. Best way to make people like you is to make them laugh. Everybody likes to be around people who make them laugh. Well, almost everybody. But this list, what I actually find most interesting about this list is almost seems to me that what happens when you come out the other side from being a people pleaser and become a helper instead. It's when you're no longer the person who lacks self-confidence and you're saying yes because you lack self-confidence. You're saying yes because you want to say yes. You're not necessarily saying yes because you want people to like you. You're saying yes because people like you and you want to say yes. People come to you because you're trustworthy and you have knowledge and experience and you can relate to them. And so they come to you with their problems. And so you can talk to them and you have the ability to relate. You've heard these stories before, so you know when to be quiet, when to talk. So over time, you become experienced. But it's hard to do that until that's the way. It's much more difficult to do that if you are stuck in the wanting to please people mode than the wanting to help people mode. Because while they can appear the same, they're actually two different things. Because when you're wanting to please people, you're wanting to make people happy so they like you. When you're wanting to help people, you're just wanting to help people. It doesn't matter if they like you or not. You just want to help them. And they happen to like you. Or the people who happen to like you come and ask you for help. Or in case of community leaders, people who don't know you come and ask you to help. Ask you for help or advice or just a friendly ear. Because they trust you, because they see you helping other people. So, well, if they help them, then maybe they'll help me. And that's actually a very powerful thing. But you have to be in position to share that power. And it's not powerful if you're trying to please people, but it is powerful if you're trying to help people. So what I want y'all to think about is, when you're trying to have this thought process, if you're trying to decide, am I a people pleaser or am I a helper? The question is why. That's the question you want to ask yourselves. Why am I doing this? Am I doing this because I'm afraid of being rejected? Am I doing this because I want people to like me? Or am I doing this because it's my nature to help and I'm just going to help because that's who I am? And if helping is just who you are, then do as much of it as you can. The world will be a better place. And if the world doesn't need that right now, then, no, that came out wrong. If that's not what the world needs right now, then I don't know what the world needs right now. So for me and Lubby, I want to thank you for joining us tonight. Join us. What is today? Thursday. Join us Saturday. I don't even know what day it is anymore. Join us Saturday.
Saturday is question night.
It's question night. Lubby loves question night. You can send us your questions at love@latenightLove.us. You can go to late-nightlove.us and put it in and send us that way, or you can find us on your favorite social media network, and we're happy to answer your questions live on the air. And I think, no, see, I'm getting mixed signals on my new system. I apologize. From here, I can't quite see well enough. It looks like it says ended stream, but it says end stream. And I'm telling everybody why I was screwed up. So anyway, thank you guys. You change service right as you can see, and who knows. Anyway, it is what it is. Thank you for me and love you. Thank you for joining us. Please like, share, subscribe, do all that good stuff for us, and we will see you on Saturday. Good night, and please remember to love everybody.
Good night.